Alright. So this video is going to be a recap of my experience at... Oops. There's a flavor packet out. This is going to be a recap of the list I played and my experience at the Grand Bounty number 4 at Zulu's Board Game Cafe, which is a really great gaming cafe and game store in Bothell, Washington State. And I went 4-2 today. I came in 14th place. Really, I wanted to be able to open these packs and all the stuff that was given out. Obviously, one of the things that was given out was this really, really cool crocodile playmat. And it's got the 4 down here because it was Grand Bounty number 4. So the playmat is really cool. And then I also got promo Monkey D. Luffy. How does that look? That's good. So you got a promo Vanilla 10 cost Monkey D. Luffy. We got a Tournament Pack Volume 6. A Tournament Pack Volume 4. Is this just a regular Tournament Pack, or is this a... I think maybe that's just a regular Tournament Pack. And a Booster Pack of OP06. So I'm going to open these later in the video, but first... Oh, and I'll provide a timestamp to skip to if you just want to see that opening. But first, I want to talk about playing Katakuri. And the list that I chose and sort of the flex spots that I went with. I'm going to set up the list and try to make my lighting right so that way there's not a whole bunch of glare off of the front of the sleeves. So I'll be back with you in a moment. Alright, I think that's the best I'm going to be able to do. So, I guess I'll leave this up while I talk about my tournament experience, and then I'll go over the actual cards one by one. I guess I'll quickly just point out the cards with my index finger, just to say what those cards are in case there is anyone who just wanted the numbers and is having a hard time seeing anything with the glare. Which I guess I could also do in the description, but... So I have 4 Pudding, 4 ONami, 2 Hiyori, 3 Charlotte Parasparrow, 4 Capone Bege, 3 Charlotte Amande, 4 Blocker Sanji, 4 Kikunojo, 3 copies of Gedatsu, 4 copies of Satori, 3 copies of 7 cost Big Mom, 1 8 cost Katakuri, 4 10 cost Big Moms, and then for the events we have 2 of the 0 cost 3K counter, You're the One Who Should Disappear, 3 copies of 2 million volts Amaru. 200 million volts Amaru, my bad. And then 3 copies of Reject. So, the matchups that I had today, I ended up going 4-2. I was pretty happy with the majority of the tournament. At the end of the tournament, I ran into back-to-back Reiju matchups. In round 5, I was playing against the person who went on to be first place by the end of the Swiss. And I got really lucky in that round. In that round, I got to play aggressively. I got to play a Parasparrow from hand, and I also triggered both a Parasparrow and a Sanji blocker from life. So I was able to set up a 9-Dawn turn where I was swinging 6 times, and I got to swing... what was it? Leader 7, Parasparrow 7, Parasparrow 7, oh, sorry. My bad. It was, I had a Pudding. So it was Pudding for 5. Was it? Nope. That was a different matchup. Good lord, I need to get my stories straight. I got to swing 6 times, and But oh, I had a Gedatsu out. I had two Parasparrows out. I had a Sanji blocker out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I have a... Ooh, maybe it was a Nami. I was either swinging 4 times or 5 times. But I got to go, for sure, I got to go 7, 7, 7, 7. Oh, sorry, no. It was 7, 7, 7, and then a 5, and then 10 with Gedatsu. And my opponent, on the attack for 10, they discarded 4 cards to get to 11 to my 10, and then 1 on the crackback. So that was a really, really great game. Did not end up getting there, but I learned from my next opponent, who took care of me pretty handily, that the Reiju Katakuri matchup is pretty favored in Reiju's favor. And in that last match I played in the Swiss, where I played the other Reiju player, it was pretty evident there. But my first round was actually Red Purple Law, which I'd heard was a bad matchup for me, but I ended up winning. I lost the die roll, and they chose to go first, so I don't think that they made the correct choice there, necessarily. Although I'm not a Red Purple Law player, so I'm not sure. And both of us mulligans, and my opponent, I believe, had an anemic draw. And I got to start with a pudding in my hand, and it was actually my first draw for the turn was also a pudding. So I got to go first turn double pudding into pretty handily control the board and pad my life total with 7 cost Big Mom and 10 cost Big Mom in the late game. Didn't feel like much contest. I think that was probably just because my opponent chose to go first and had some bad draws. And I got to curve out pretty well and had a double pudding for a start. In the second match, I got to play against Black Yellow Luffy, which was actually really fun. As I got to be pretty aggressive in the start of the game, and I got my opponent down to 0 life cards, and they did get to have a Tendon Gecko Moria turn. But I had established such a board by then that they had to be defensive, and they had to put out Blocker Sabos. And they did not see Blocker Sabo in the middle of the game. They only saw it like late in the game when they were really on the back foot. So there was a point in time where my opponent had 3 5-cost Blocker Sabos in play, and I thought that I was not going to be able to convert to a win. I thought, oh no, am I exactly where my opponent wants me to be? Are they just going to stay at 0 life for the rest of the game and just keep on recurring value and slowly chip away and get me dead? And then I remembered that they had like 1 card in hand, and I had like 4 good attacks. So I made my first attack a 6 to their 5 to make sure that if they had a 2k counter in hand, they had to use it. And they did have a 2k counter in hand, but then because they were at 0 life, I just forced them to use up all of their Sabo blockers, and I had like a cat, a 7 cost Big Mom, and a 10 cost Big Mom in play, or something silly like that. Like, I had a lot of bigger characters in play. And then the turn afterwards, they had no cards in hand, and they basically used the leader ability and trashed the card that they drew just to put 2 more cards into life, and they were out of blockers. So that one went well. The third round, I played against... what did I play in the third round? Enel. I played against Enel in the third round. And my opponent said that they thought they made a bit of a mistake against me because on their 9 Dawn turn, they thought they were operating with 10 Dawn. So they accidentally put a Dawn somewhere when they had a Yamato in hand, and I had gotten them to 0 life. They could have gained a life. But that was also a good close game. Let me try to recall more detail about that matchup. My opponent from that match actually did very well for the rest of the tournament. They ended up making the top 8, so good for them. That was a very interesting matchup. I really like the dynamic of the NL Katakuri matchup. Apparently, it's really favored for Katakuri, which helps how much I like it. But, but yeah, that was that felt like a very close matchup in terms of aggression from both sides, because it kind of felt like I was walking, or it kind of felt like I was skating on thin ice, being aggressive and life checking them every turn, which of course makes sense for a deck with a lot of triggers. But just sort of having to navigate around that last life card is really tricky. And I mean, for more seasoned players that have more reps with the deck or playing against an L, I'm sure it's not a huge deal. But yeah, that was a good match as well. I ended up taking that. And then in the fourth matchup, I played probably my favorite match of the whole tournament, which was I played against Red Yellow Sabo, which, if anyone remembers, is the alt leader that I opened out of the promo pack that came with the starter deck that I opened on this channel. I do still want to build that deck. I'm really, really excited to build that deck because it just gets to reuse Kikunojo by putting it back into life. And that's exactly what happened when I played against them. Is I did end up winning, but the only reason that I ended up winning is basically because I was able to keep a large board, and I was able to kill them from 3 life because the last life card that I took, which I could have countered out of, but I chose to take it just in case I hit another trigger, and I knew that was their last attack. The last life card that I had was a trigger body. It was Blocker Sanji, and the only reason that I was able to win that game is because I very, very cautiously played around whether or not I was giving them free cards out of life, and half the time it didn't matter. They got an Inuarashi out of me when I just checked their life, and then they got a free 5k into play because they had very quickly gotten me to like 3 and 2 life. And there was almost always a Kikunojo on top of their life, and finally got to the point where I had managed to survive this long. I had to just take the rest of my life cards and go for game the next turn, because regardless of whether or not I countered out of that life that ended up being the Blocker Sanji, I wasn't surviving another turn. They had me down too low, and I knew that there was more coming, and I couldn't afford to just oh no, there's 2 Kikunojo on top of their life that they're gonna get for free when I hit them. So I think I swung 6 times, which started, I think that was the one where I started with a throw some Dawn onto a Charlotte Pudding and attack. I believe in that matchup I messed up because I had the ability to cast like 2 Gedatsu in that match, and I checked like 1 life that they had. Yeah. I checked like 1 life off of them, and then I was like, oh no, I can't KO the Kikunojo. And then they took a couple cards off of my life. I realized I wouldn't even want to KO the Kikunojo. But they had the activate main 1-cost Nami that says attach a Rested Dawn to one of your leaders or characters. And I had plenty of opportunity to play out a Gedatsu just to have a 6k body in play, and I could have popped that. That was putting a Dawn onto their leader so they could activate leader ability like every turn. And I think I should have done a better job at just getting rid of that while I could. But that was definitely the sweetest deck that I played all day. That opponent also made the top 8, which makes me super happy because that is a deck that I am excited to try playing. And his list looked... Well, I have no relative viewpoint on what constitutes a good red-yellow Sabo list, because I haven't looked at any of the lists, but just everything that was being played in that deck looked like it was so much fun to play. So I ended up winning there, again, basically just on the back of somehow I didn't die, and then at the end of the game there were 3 cards in his life, and 2 of them were face up, and they were Kikunojo. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I can't survive next turn anyways, so I guess I'm really lucky that these Kikunojos don't have any counter power, and he had not a lot of cards left in hand, if any at all. So I just donned everything up, and I just swung as many times as I could, and he had one blocker, and if I got him on the last attack. The very last attack is when the game ended, and he was able to utilize his blocker on the second to last attack, and he was like, yep, if you hadn't got that Sanji blocker out of life, I would have got there. And I kind of sat back and was like, yeah, you would have got there. So I'm really excited that that the red-yellow Sabo player got into the top 8. I didn't stick around for the top 8, but I'm sure that it'll be announced. So I really hope that they do well if they end up playing in the top 8. I heard some comments about possibly splitting top 8 prize pool, which sometimes happens at these tournaments. When people, they do very well and they want to go home. Or, maybe not. I'll have to double check on the prize pool. Or I'll just have to check back up with Zulu's Discord channel to see how that went. But yeah, and then I played Reiju twice, and I lost twice in a row. The last round wasn't really a great game, but I think that's just because the matchup went the way it's supposed to. I didn't feel like I had anemic draws. I just felt like I didn't have very lucky draws like I did the first time that I played against Reiju. And the Reiju player that beat me, they ended in the very last round. They also ended up getting into. They were third place after Swiss. So good on them. Of course, that one was more cut and dry. I asked at the end of the matchup, do Reiju players like their Katakuri matchup? Because that just felt kind of brutal. And they said, yeah, that is pretty good for us. So I guess if I wanted to talk about card choice, I would have to start with some outliers in terms of what you usually see in Katakuri decks. Only 3 of Charlotte Amande is not that insane. A lot of people will run like 2 Amande, 2 Streisand, so that way they are likely to see an Amande later in the game. So hopefully the text on Charlotte Amande actually might do something. I feel like right now there's not a lot of 2-cost blockers or less. And I'm trying to think of very specific scenarios where you want that effect. Most importantly, it's a Big Mom Pirates searchable 2K, which is also what Streisand is. I really wanted to run 2 copies of Hiyori, because I hadn't really seen a lot of it in specifically Katakuri. It seems like most Katakuri players are favoring playing more searchable 2Ks over Hiyori. And I'm sure that's not all Katakuri players, but that's what I was finding when I was looking up recent winning OP06 Western lists. And I loved Hiyori. I think 2 is the right number. Well, whenever I had a Hiyori in my hand and I knew that I would probably have to use it as 2K counter, I always felt like a small amount of regret that I did not get to use its unplayability. So I'm thinking that I might take this list and mess with it a little bit to run 4, or at least to run 3. I think the coolest moments that I had in this tournament, where I felt like I was doing something really special, or like I just felt very safe after this play, was like turn 2, play a Hiyori, grab a life card, put either a 0-cost counter or a Bege onto the top of my life, and then attack with Katakuri and use the ability to look at your top life card and put it on the top or bottom, and then just tuck the Bege at the bottom of your life. I think in the game where I did that against the red-purple law player, because their draw was not very good, and because I got to curve out very well, and they also chose to be on the play, so I was going second, I feel like it didn't end up mattering in that game, but I did get to put a zero cost counter on the bottom. And I got to do that. That was actually just the first thing that I saw when I swung with Katakuri. But just the feeling of knowing that if it came to it, you have just that little bit of extra insurance. It feels so nice during the course of a game. And I'm interested in playing this some more at locals. Just to see if just to see it in action, to see it actually be a payoff for taking that action. Because I feel like the situations that I had this game where I got to go Hiyori, put Bege on top of library, attack with Katakuri, put it on bottom of library. I think the first 4 rounds that I played were just so... Like, I ran so hot that I didn't get to actually see the payoff of that type of strategy. However, I tend to be a more aggressive player, generally speaking, so I think that I personally would just enjoy running more copies of Hiyori, whether that's 3 copies or 4 copies. What else is there? There's 3 Gedatsu. I haven't been... I mean, Gedatsu is good. That's just... Gedatsu is a very good card. I just feel like I don't necessarily need to see 2 of it in every matchup I play. There are some matchups where it's amazing. There are some matchups where it doesn't do anything. And I feel like I'm a middling level player. I don't think I'm an insanely good Katakuri player. I think I am a decent Katakuri player, and I find myself accidentally checking my opponent's life to be one too few in order to use this. I find myself in a lot of matchups where I want to get rid of a 4 cost. I'm against a 2-color leader or an Enel, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pop that. Oh, I checked their life last turn, and I can't do that anymore. And then it's a personal problem, right? I can learn to be better about that. And then I'm only playing 3 copies of ONami, which was I previously playing 4? Or was I playing 3? No, I was playing 4. Because I definitely removed a copy of Nami from this list in order to fit the 2 copies of Hiyori, the 3rd reject, and 2 copies of You're the One That Should Disappear. The previous version of this list was not running the 8-cost cat, was running 4 Gedatsu, was running 4 ONami, was running 4 Charlotte Parasparrow. Charlotte Parasparrow was the second thing that I cut in order to fit the second Hiyori, because the Hiyoris went in for 1 Charlotte Amande and 1 Parasparrow. And I was thinking to myself, I was looking at a couple of lists online, and there was one list that was online where they were running a couple of Charlotte Brûlée trigger blockers, but they weren't running ONami, and that just seemed insane to me. ONami is 1k counter in hand. It is something you can pair with a big leader swing to get rid of an important trigger when you know it's there, or even if you just have nothing better to do. And the trigger for KOing something 5 or less, basically allowing you to have a free Thunderbolt effect out of your life, where you actually get to go up to 5. That combination of things on 1 card is insane. And I personally feel like not running ONami at all is a mistake. The 8-cost Katakuri, this as a one-of was something I saw in one online list specifically, and I just really like the idea because I just like the card. As someone who was taking pride in owning 4 copies of this card, and then going from OP05 into OP06 where like nobody was playing the card at the beginning of the format, I was like, hey, these are... what? These are still like $60 a piece, and now I don't get to use them in the deck I want to play. Which again, that's more of a personal reaction, not really a it's not really an important bit of commentary. But I saw somebody else doing it, and I went, oh shoot, somebody has a reason to run at least one of these. I'm going to run one of them. I did get to use it, and just the defensive play of being able to like swing with a Kiku and then tuck it back into your life is so great. I love it. I'm actually wondering... I'm wondering if there is any way that I could run sort of a Land of Wano heavy Katakuri where I got to play like some number of the Momonosuke blocker. Because you can tuck ONami, if you really wanted to, or this would probably be like a not a great situation, but you could tuck a Hiyori, and most importantly, you can tuck Kiku. So that card just seems really great. That was some tech that I saw out of the Red Yellow Sabo leader player, so maybe I'll just have to try it out when I try that deck. I think I'm fine with 3 copies of Gedatsu, whatever form this deck takes. I'm trying to think about what in the meta in general you really, really, really want to see it against, and the answer is probably... It's probably just the mirror, really. Other decks that can pretty easily add life back. Other 5 life leaders. And probably a good reason for it that I'm not thinking of right now. Reject. Reject is an insane card. It's going to be banned from Western play once OP07 releases. I don't like this card. I think that may just be my anecdotal experience. I think 2 copies of this card is fine. I think that 3 copies of this card felt like a little too much. Because I did get to see this card like 3 times today. One of the times it was triggering to draw me a card. I felt like every single time that I've played this recently, which would be today, and then also yesterday, I played a locals, and both me and my friend were undefeated, so we got to basically just split prizing in the last round for the locals tournament. My friend plays Gecko Moria, so I was undefeated after 3 rounds on Katakuri, and he was undefeated for 3 rounds on Gecko Moria. We were actually late for a party that we had been invited to, so we basically chose to split prizing so that way we could get to our friend's party that we were late to because we were both doing well in the One Piece tournament. But yeah, when I was playing in that local, I encountered Reject a couple of times, and I feel like I use this card more to blow up 5 costs than I do to deal a damage when my opponent is at 1 life and take a life card. It's like, it's a very good card, and the fact that it blows up 5 costs is probably what makes it a good card, because the second mode is very good. You can take a situation where maybe your opponent thought they were going to win with the blocker, and all of a sudden they have 1 direct point of damage, and it changes the game. But even though this spell is really powerful, I feel the thing has no counter, and the trigger can be very underwhelming if you're forced to use it. So I feel like I'm wanting to go back to 2 copies of Reject, because I think 2 copies is great because you'll draw like 1 in the entire game. You almost never want to see it out of your life unless you check life with Katakuri and you go, oh, I just need to blow up a 5 cost. So I think I'm going to go back down to 2 copies of that. I love this 0 cost 3k counter to trash a card and give +3/+0. You're the one who should disappear. I got to use this functionally. Well, functionally. Of course I got to use it functionally. I got to use it to great effect multiple times today. I got to put it as the bottom card of my life. I might actually go up to 3 copies of this 0k counter just because it's a card similar to Bege where you can set it with Hiyori and then tuck it to the bottom with Katakuri. It's just a card you feel great being on the bottom of your deck. And then me being a more aggressive player, I am looking to play towards Kikunojo or towards 7 cost Big Mom. And when I say I'm a more aggressive player, I mean I'm more likely to look at an opponent with like 2 life cards and 5 cards in hand and decide that it's time to try and end the game, as opposed to biding my time and deciding that because I I might not die next turn. I should just sort of pull back, maybe set a blocker, maybe try to take care of their board if that's an option. I feel like if there is a 50-50 shot that they have something or they don't have something, I would rather go for game if they have a middling amount of resources, if it's not like guaranteed whether or not I'm going to be able to survive the next turn. So I think that for me personally, having 3 copies of the 0-cost 3k counter makes more sense. Oddly enough, I do not like 200 million volts Amaru. I think that the trigger on 200 million volts Amaru, just being able to trash 2 cards from hand and add a life again, is really good. But when I was playing today, and when I was playing in the local the day before, I felt like this card was always getting trashed either to a different trigger effect, or I was trashing it to play a Charlotte Paraspero. Every single time that I used this card, or well, rather, I don't think I actually used this card. I used this card once. I used this card exactly once today. It was against the Reiju player that I played against and almost got there against in round 5. The one who ended up winning the Swiss, or being placed first after the Swiss. I used that exactly once, and I feel like the extra 1,000 power in a lot of places just feels underwhelming, and I also feel like I don't get to utilize the resting of a 4-cost or less character that often. Now, with that said, I basically played against no Borsellino decks today. I ran hot, and then I played against 2 matchups that are bad. I played against Reiju twice. So the mode of you are at 1 or less life, rest a Borsellino, is basically what I'm thinking of. I guess there's probably also cases where you're at 1 or less life and you've done a pretty good job of trading your board for your opponent's board, so being able to rest just any 4-cost or less attacker with a 5k body might turn the tide and stabilize for you. But I'm actually really excited at the idea to just, like, not play 3 copies of this card. I think 2 copies is kind of nice because, well, the clause of being able to rest something is something that I personally don't like a lot. I feel like the trigger is the main source of value for this card, and sometimes you get an extra 1,000 power for your investment. But I'm really not fond of 200 million volts Amaru, personally. That's my anecdotal experience. And right now, I do not feel like games are being swung specifically on whether or not I can rest a 4-cost. I am not excited to play this card in the early game, or the mid game, or the late game. The late game, I guess, is the only exception, specifically because you want to see it off the top of your deck when you have almost no life cards and you need to rest a blocker. But just because it has a trigger that refunds you a life in a very non-conditional way, or a more non-conditional way than you're the one who should disappear, because you're the one who should disappear very strictly specifies this has to be your last card in life. You trigger it when it's your last card in life because you have no more life cards, so you just get one for free. And you only have to trash 1 card from hand. And I think that that's really great, because 200 million volts Amaru, you are getting rid of 2 cards. And it's at any point, but you're getting rid of 2 cards. I don't like that at all. So for me, I am very, very happy to get rid of a couple of copies. Well, a couple of copies. I'm very happy to get rid of one of these copies of 200 million volts Amaru. So, personally, I think I want to run 2 Reject, and 2 Amaru. And I think I want to go back up to the 4th Parasparrow. And I think I want to add... you know what? I'm not sure if I want to add a third one of these, because on the one hand, it will synergize with me having a lot of 0 counter cards in the deck. But I also don't want to see this out of life all the time, which is... it's nice that I can grab it with Hiyori. I guess that's the other nice thing about potentially going up to a 3rd copy of this, while also increasing the number of Hiyoris that I have, is that if I do both of those things, then I can protect myself better, but also have a higher likelihood of being able to put one of these from my hand onto the top of life with Hiyori and then swing with Katakuri and put it to the bottom. I'm trying to think of instances this game where it really felt like I should be doing a lot more smaller Dawn tasks rather than slamming Charlotte Linlin. But I'm pretty sure that that is my memory from my very last match, which was already just a bad matchup. So, why was I articulating that? I was articulating that because what I was really trying to say is that you can get rid of 7 cost and 10 cost Big Moms with your 0 cost 3k counter. Although I don't know how good that really is. I mean, if you have 3 of them in your hand, or 2 of them in your hand, and you're only going to have time to play 1, yeah, it's great. Protect yourself, but... I want to go up at least 1 Hiyori. My searchability for 2Ks that are Big Mom Pirates type is already bad because I only have 3 Charlotte Amande, because this does not grab Bege, but you can't cut Bege because the trigger is too good. I wonder if you could shave a Satori. Like, Satori is a very good, well-rounded card. It's a 5k body out of life. It's a 2k counter when you need it to be one. It's very flexible. But if I am increasing my 2k count, how much do I care about the number of trigger bodies I get out of life? I'm thinking I probably care very much, but I'm trying to justify putting a 4th copy of ONami back in the deck. I think I want to go up a You're the One Who Should Disappear, down an Amaru, down a Reject, up a Hiyori. I think that's a starting point that I really like to begin with, is just, let's go to 3 Hiyori, let's go to 3 copies of You're the One Who Should Disappear, let's go back down to 2 copies of these other cards that feel somewhat lackadaisical. Which you feel kind of bad saying that about Reject, because I understand the card is, conventionally speaking, good. In my personal experience, I feel like half the time I draw this card, I really just need counter power in hand, or it's not going to swing the game, or... I played against a Nell the other day, too. Maybe that was it. It was kind of rotting away in my hand while I realized that I didn't want to use it to just give them a free card because I wasn't going to finish them off that turn. I just kind of had to leave them at 1 life. I'm going to try cutting a Reject and a Million Volts Amaru, adding in a 3rd Hiyori and a 3rd You're the One Who Should Disappear. And if I was a crazy man, I would cut a 2nd copy, cut another Charlotte Amande, put in the 4th Hiyori, and if I was a really crazy man, maybe I would cut a Satori for a Parasparrow. But I kind of... I have split feelings about the 3 Parasparrow. I think ONami out of 3 of is a nice number. You're likely to see 1 in your life, and if you're playing a lot of Hiyori, you're likely to see 1 throughout the game. If you're really lucky in this version, you'll be able to get Banish off your leader, and if it sticks around, you can tuck it back into your life with 8-cost Katakuri. Huh. But my searchability for 2K counters in this deck is already really bad. If you look at the number of cards I have, and this is Sky Island, the 0 cost 3K counter is Sky Island as well. So if you look at how many targets do I get right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 targets. I think I actually heard that when you want to search for something, you want like 19 or more. I don't remember who I heard that from or why they quoted that number. But I don't know. Charlotte Pudding is kind of too good to not run, though, because it grabs your Big Mom, and it's something to do on turn 1, and it has 1K counter. I guess if you wanted to, you could cut to 3 puddings, but I feel like that's wrong. I think 3 Parasparrows is fine. It's got a really great on-KO ability. I guess you could swap a Parasparrow for a Satori. No, that's probably worth it. It's probably worth swapping a Parasparrow for a Satori, especially if you're upping the total number of 2K counters in your deck because you want to run 4 Hiyori or 3 Hiyori. Because, I mean, previously I was running just the Charlotte Amande. I wasn't running a one of Streisand or anything. So when I cut the 4th Charlotte Amande, I had 1 Hiyori, and then I had to cut the I had to cut the 4th copy of Charlotte Parasparrow to get the 2nd Hiyori. And in today's match, the closest I ever came to beating Reiju was actually when I hit a 2nd copy of this out of life. Now, that 2nd copy, it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this. Within the context of that game, it didn't really matter that it was Parasparrow. It was just hitting another 5K body was really good in that instance, because my opponent wasn't going for board. They were just clearing my hand out. Because they were they were doing Reiju things. They were constantly just looping through their deck and, like, drawing 3 cards a turn. So, within specifically that context, I was like, oh, I want another Parasparrow. But realistically, like, I still get to play for 8, 9, 10. I get to play, like, 8 5K bodies where you get to play them out of life after trashing a card. Kikunojo is more situational, but Kikunojo is too good to not run 4 wherever you want to run Kikunojo. There were lists that I saw that were running like 3 copies of Kikunojo, and I was just like, no, you can't do that. If you ever get it out of life for free, or if you ever get a life from it when it gets KO'd, it's just so good. In fact, in the locals I was playing, the last round I was playing was an Enel Katakuri matchup, and it was a very slow burner of a matchup because I was playing really cautiously around their last life. But I was doing that because I could afford to. Like, I ended the game at like 5 life or 4 life after they had gotten me down to 3 life, and then I had put myself back up to 4 and 5 life because of grinding the game out really long. Because I was playing very cautiously around their last life. They were like perpetually at 1 life for like the entirety of the end of the game, minus like when they played their 2nd and 3rd copies of Yamato. And basically, the reason I got so ahead, well, my opponent said that they drew poorly, and I can believe that because the game went very decidedly in my favor. But the point where it all really went to shit for them was when I was able to put myself at 4 life by putting a Kikunojo into my life with 8 cost Katakuri. And then I put myself to 4, and I got to kill their Kikunojo and not grant them a life from it. And from that point forward, they never got board control again. They weren't able to profitably lower my life total to make it a closer game. And basically the inflection point of that entire game was me being able to get rid of that Kikunojo. So I'm playing 4. I'm playing 4, that's it. But yeah, I've talked about this for far too long. So, I'm going to get on to opening the product. I'm going to pause to clear this list so that way I can take up more of the screen with those cards. Okay, we got the promo packs and the regular pack, and I'm going to open. Not going to be very fancy or careful about this. I have some sleeves to put this stuff in to appease the masses. That's that, 1, 2, 3, and then whatever comes out of this pack, if it's good. Because I doubt there's any regular rare that isn't an alt that I would care to sleeve. Okay, I'm going to take this Luffy promo out of its promo packaging because, yeah. Oh, well, quite frankly, because I want to put it in a binder. Alright. Also looks really cool. 4 Emperors, Straw Hat Crew. It's too bad this vanilla 10 cost isn't in blue or green. I could play it in Sanji. Alright. I'm looking for a Kaya. I am a god. I got what I was looking for. I personally am going to make use of this card, and I'm not going to trade it, but I'm going to put it in the sleeve, because apparently people want to see that. What is this? Hey, my third Dracula Mihawk! These are good pulls! The moral of the story is that you don't have to do well at tournaments, you just have to get good pulls. This feels a little warped. I wonder if this card maybe was... I don't know. That was the Tournament Pack Volume 4. This, yeah, it feels a little warped. Alright. Calling it. Manga, whatever. The most expensive and rare card. I think I got an alt gone. That's cool. And what is it? What? Wait a minute. No way. No way. Hang on a moment. Okay, I think this might be a Gecko alt. I hope I'm crazy, because I've already opened up a Gecko alt. Okay, got a Charlotte Pudding as the other card in the deck. Oh my god. I thought I saw black on the on the corners. Okay. What the heck? What is going on? This is one pack. One pack of OP06. Hang on a moment. I need to see it before you all. Oh my god. It's a freaking Gecko Moria alt. This is one pack. What did I say 2 seconds ago? You don't have to do well in the tournament. You just have to pull well in your packs. Jesus. What is life? What the heck? Said it before, I'll say it again. I should have started doing YouTube videos a long time ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah, good haul. Shout out to Zulu's Board Game Cafe for hosting this really great event. I had an amazing time, even before I pulled a Gecko Moria alt art. What? Well, I'll see y'all next time. I'm having a great day, and I hope you have a great day as well.